tap water. Daniel, talk to us about tap water. People every day are drinking poisons they're not even aware of. I mean, when they think about their diet, they're only thinking, let's avoid fast food, and I should be better than if I don't. But they don't even consider the water sources that they're getting. How do you get weed killer in water?
Yeah, this blows my mind too, and this is why this is so important, because we talked earlier in the episode about dangers with microchipping and biohacking, and all of those are problems that are on the horizon. They're here in a lot of ways now, but focusing too much on those, I think, obfuscates away from this kind of stuff, especially if it's in our tap water at home. Yeah, what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, and actually, as per the previous conversation, relation to technology and how all the things that are affecting us, this is the most significant thing affecting us. And glyphosate we're picking on right now because it deserves it. But there's many other things that could also be associated with that. But it is so pervasive, it's quite amazing. And so glyphosate, it was not patented as a weed killer. It was patented as an antibiotic. Right?
Exactly.
And this is an important distinguishment because, and this is what allowed for it, because it targets the pathways in plants exclusively and not in humans, and which is what allowed them to do this. And so whenever it inhibits an enzyme in the plant, right? And so we spray it down, and this goes all over our fields, and they blanket the field, and actually very little of the glyphosate content actually just goes to plants. It goes to the whole field, the whole soil ecology.
Right.
And when I say soil ecology, that's the bacteria and things that live in soil.
Right.
And this is actually the most important thing because it fundamentally disrupts the ecological state of the soil, and then a lot of processes can't happen. It specifically inhibits kind of the way that amino acids are converted to bioavailable states for humans.
Right.
And so not only does it do it from the plant, so you're wanting to go and get amino acids, which we have 200,000 amino acids essentially make up the human body, and 9 of those actually can't be made by the human body, and those are the 9 essentials that we have to get outside of ourselves. So when then we put this stuff into our soil, it inhibits that, and it's bacteria that breaks these things down. Well, then we eat it, and we know that bacteria in our stomach is responsible for huge amounts of our own nutrition, not just, but in all of our body. So it doesn't just affect it on the plant. We then take it into us, and these affect the epithelial linings, the stomach linings, also passing through the blood-brain barrier and things like this by creating permeability in these layers. So there's all kinds of things that occur. It evaporates. So whenever glyphosate evaporates, it raises up into the sky, and then we end up breathing it, which is actually more severe in its particulation than it is actually in its liquid form. You just don't get the same volume. It's still like the worst. And you're breathing an antibiotic. That's essentially what that's implying.
There was a recent report, too, that says glyphosate, researchers from the University of Washington evaluated existing studies and found that you have a 41% higher risk of cancer if you're exposed to glyphosate than if not. So if we're breathing that in, 41%, that's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. But I also, before people absolutely lose their mind, I want to bait you just for a minute, let you know, before this panel closes, though we can't give you every step to make yourself impervious to all this stuff, we're going to give you some very good tips on how to begin today with where you're at to sidestep or at least mitigate some of the effects of this. And to answer a question that you asked me a minute ago, what about USDA organic labeled foods? Can you sidestep this? You can dramatically reduce. There are concerns that because of birds flying over and cross-pollinating seeds from one farm to the next, things that get sprayed 30 acres away, air and rain carry it over to another. Yes, and in that regard, what mankind is doing to the earth is absolutely devastating, and I'm not going to candy coat it. It's getting very hard to avoid these things. However, there is a massive difference, and there's a ton of research that you could independently do, or, again, I defer to the book Time Bomb if you want some of the statistics.
That's what it looks like. And we'll let you know how you can get a hold of it in just a minute here. But there are a lot of really practical steps any of you at home could take, way more than we would be able to talk about during the time of this interview.
Although, to interject really quickly,
Sure.
we are going to in the future be providing programming over things we can do. It's not, we don't want to just give doom and gloom. We really want the premise of what we're doing here to be hope, and not hopeful based in, just hope, but hope based in reason. And so there's a lot of things that we can really do, as to what you was alluding to, and we're going to provide more of that programming.
But you can start today to dramatically reduce the exposures that you and your children are up against with this stuff. Clean water is a huge one. Also, there are seals now on some of my, and again, I don't brand endorse, because as soon as I publicly brand endorse, unless it's something I'm comfortable carrying at the Skywatch television store, companies get bought out. So if I make a statement like, oh, I like this particular kind of oatmeal, and then 6 months later I've created a soundbite of that, it gets archived somewhere, somebody finds that and they start eating that oatmeal for the rest of their life. But in the meantime, they've got bought out by a large corporation, like, I'm just using Nestle as an example. Then there's this question about quality control, ingredients from seed to shelf. Did they actually put the work into making sure that we're sidestepping chemical exposures? So there are seals, for example, now that will literally say on the front of them, things like from farmers we know, or you'll see a little seal at the bottom that will say independently bio-certified glyphosate free. I love to support brands that are making a very proactive effort to announce at the onset, not just that it's generically organic and then you're to go independently research, although that's a healthy thing to do and I do it all the time, but for the layperson who just doesn't have time to face the avalanche, who are raising children and working their jobs, and they're like, I just can't even watch a panel like this, guys. I'm seriously drowning in despair, and 5G technology is coming, and what am I supposed to do?
Sounds incredibly complicated.
Oh, it's just too much.
Yeah.
Great resource would be an example, something like Time Bomb, but also Daniel. Let's get back to water, because if I had to point at one thing, apart from cereals and the foods we eat every day, one of the fastest way to get birth control residues, antibiotic residues, and weed killer exposures every day, even if you were to eat completely organic, if you're not doing something about your own tap water or well water, if you're on a well, you are not immune from this stuff. I have a well at home that's 300 feet deep and it's less than a year old. I still use a water filter. But go ahead and talk to us a little bit about how do you get clean water if that is one of the fastest ways to disease right now?
Yeah, and the water really is the fastest way to disease right now, and that is we are so much constituted of water. Our water is in all of the aspects of agriculture, sewage, rain runoff, and all different kinds of things. So there's actually a couple really positive things to bear in mind. One thing is shown that over time, soil organisms having good bacterial ecology, so if we can return our soils to the right ecology by using the right practices in water, organisms can break it down eventually, but you have to stop giving it glyphosate. So that means there are actually regenerative practices that we can take that will offset this, and we can restore our stewardship over the earth. Like, we are meant to be good stewards. Like, these things have laws and reason behind them. They are created in a very specific way, and we are the ones that are responsible for that. And it's shown now that if we're willfully ignorant to that fact, we pay for that fact.
Hugely.
Yes, and at any moment that we go back to and reinstitute the practices by which govern our earth through biologic, so to speak, and get away from this chemical warfare that we got going on, poisoning us at the most base levels, and then that goes inside of us, we have real chances to undo these things. And so there was relatively recently, some tests done on water filters associated with glyphosate. And we're going to, again, go into this probably a little bit more depth in the future. A high quantity of filters tested, all the way from gravity filters like large Berkey filters, all the way down to sport bottle filters and pitcher filters and ones in between. They had, basically tested all these, not every brand on the market, but there was one there were a couple of the sports bottle ones removed up to upwards of like 57% of glyphosate, which I think is actually quite good considering you just put it in a sport bottle.
Right.
But and so you have a number of your water pitchers you might be used to, like Pure or Brita or something
Right.
to that
Certainly
effect.
better than nothing. But if you're a glass half empty guy,
Yeah.
you're thinking, yeah, but I'm still getting
50%.
40 times more glyphosate than our
Yeah.
great grandfathers did. You know.
Yeah. And one of the ironies behind this a little bit was the fact that some of the sports bottle filters filtered better than some of the tabletop filters,
Wow.
so the pitcher filters. So a lot of it's about the quality of it. There was one filter in particular that was of the pitcher kind that removed 100% of detectable glyphosate.
Wow.
100%. Like literally no scientifically significant amount of detectable glyphosate, and that's huge. I mean, that is huge. Now, chances are you're going to have to change that filter on a somewhat regular basis just based on the volume that we're exposed to.
Now, people are going to be wondering, which one is it, Daniel? Which one is it? So, at the time of this recording, are you comfortable telling them which one it was?
No. And
Okay.
I will, but I'm going to.
But we have reasons, guys.
Yes,
It's
yes,
not
there-
to withhold information. You know, let me just interject because I would be thinking the same thing. Which one is it? Which one is it?
Mm-hmm.
We would encourage you to safely check out, go to Google and just type out, water filters and either do your own research and find maybe some of the results that Daniel was able to find. I've watched this, and again, I'm not going to name big corporations, but supplements that I used to personally take at one time just 2 years ago, I would have said, these are the ones, these are the ones. I've had to redact that position, and I thought at the time, had I said that in Time Bomb, for example, I could have devastated a whole generation of people now that are getting a huge disservice in quality ingredient controls.
Yeah.
Corporations get bought out by very anti-mom, very anti-breastfeed, very pro-vaccine
Yeah.
type corporations that will do anything and everything as soon as, they got the deep pockets.
Yeah. Yeah.
They buy a family-owned company and they start swapping things out.
Well, it makes
Yeah.
sense why you're not comfortable actually giving out the specific product because you just never know what's going to happen with those companies in the future.
But we're not going to leave it totally ambiguous. Daniel, we
Yeah.
actually at SkywatchTelevisionStore.com do carry some very phenomenal water filtration systems.
Well, and really it's kind of beyond phenomenal, and that's what this bore out in. So they technically say that Berkey's filter 75% of glyphosate.
And if you're not familiar with a Berkey, maybe we can put up an image
Sure.
for you and maybe a link to the Skywatch Television Store. But go ahead.
Sure. But under practical tests by third party, it removed the big Berkey filter, removed 100% of the glyphosate.
Wow.
So not
phenomenal.
like way beyond, and I assume that there's probably some liability error that they're hedging on a bit when they make their claims. But when put through multiple tests,
Right.
they came out at 100% removal. And the good thing, at least to Berkey, and I can speak to that at least, for our purposes, is it removed a vast amount of anything that was really
Right.
It's kind of a gold standard. And there was one other one. Again, I won't get into mentioning that name, but it was 100% as well. And there was only 3, and one was the water pitcher, and 2 were the gravity
Right.
filters. And but the other one, which, and I can't speak completely educatedly about it, so you can't hold me this exactly, but you could check it out yourself. And I can't remember the exact name of it, but they use plastic reservoirs, which I wasn't
Right.
in favor of, really. And so, but that again, 100%. Like,
Right.
and if it can be done as a gravity filter, or especially as a pitcher filter, it would also should be done on your shower filter as well, because people don't realize that whenever we ingest that water, just not orally,
Right.
whenever we shower, it's why
through our skin.
that's why we wrinkles, because we're saturated with the water
Right.
and the
Oh.
constituents in the water.
And if people are thinking, okay, I've never heard of a Berkey. Some people get it confused with Berkeley, and they're not sure what it even means. And you're thinking, surely a filter like that is thousands of dollars. We have models right at the $199 price point if you want one of the smaller Berkeys. But I mean, they cap at, I think, under $400. This is all from memory, but under $400 for the Royal Berkey.